Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you have questions, Deborah's walking around with the basket. She'll make one more pass through, and then during the Q&A, we'll have someone walking around as well. So just hold up your card if you need to have it turned in. I'm Emmy Cardella, president of Scottsdale Parent Council, and this is Lulu Farage, and she'll start us off with our land acknowledgement.
Welcome, everyone. As we gather for this meeting, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we do our business today. We wish to acknowledge this land on which this SPC meeting is taking place. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Hohokam, the Akimel O'odam, and most recently, the Salt River Pima Indian community. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across Maricopa, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land.
Thank you, Lulu. So our agenda for tonight, we have 30 minutes with Dr. Menzel, and then we'll talk a little bit about SPC, our history and the mission of our organization, and then we have a couple updates from our executive board, and then we will be hearing from our VP of Representatives on what an SPC representative is and how parents and guardians can get involved that way with our organization. And then we have a couple updates from our committees. So we will go ahead and get started with the main attraction. So I do need the basket. So looks like there's a bunch, so I'm just gonna reach in and pull one out one at a time. If it's a question that's sort of a repeat, I'll read the question and we'll just move on to the next one, but we'll make sure we get as many read as we can. All right, welcome, Dr. Menzel.
Thank you.
All right, jump right in. So, is the district planning on eliminating the quarantine requirement, if students are masked? If not, why? If masks work, parentheses.
So the plan as of last night is to move, and I've already sent a message to Dr. Sonnenschein indicating what our plan is, and that is to move to a place where if people are fully masked and they are not symptomatic at all for COVID, they would not be required to quarantine. The close contact notice would still go out to families because we need to monitor for the development of potential symptoms. But we recognize that the quarantine protocols that are currently in place are very disruptive. As much as we would like to not have to do them at all, we also need to follow the requirements of the health department. So it's only a slight shift from what the CDC recommends. So under the CDC recommendations for close contact, when everybody's fully masked, it moves from 6 feet of separation to 3. So you'd have a smaller bubble of individuals who would be quarantined. But our proposal is to move to a place where if the parties are all fully masked and non-symptomatic. Now, the individual who's COVID positive has to isolate for the prescribed period of time. But anyone who's not symptomatic would be able to come to school unless they develop symptoms.
Okay, great, thank you. This one is titled Education, and it says, with the state being so low in education in terms of other states, why are we not focused on that? Why are we not focused on filling the voids that are direct effects of the learning environment for the last 18 months?
So I would say that we have been spending time, our teaching and learning team, our building level leaders, our teachers have all been looking at student data. If you look at our AZM2 scores from last year, and I don't put a lot of stock in just the state assessments, it's one measure, it's not the only measure. But across the valley, our Scottsdale students performed, in elementary in particular, at the top or very near the top of every single category, both ELA and math. And so it's a testament to our students' resilience, our teachers' resilience as we navigated COVID last year. That doesn't mean there's not room for improvement and an opportunity to actually provide the support our students need to have fallen behind. But the data from last year is an encouraging sign that notwithstanding all of the challenges, our students did fairly well. We are in the process of fleshing out a strategic plan for the district that really focuses on engaging all students in world-class, future-focused learning. We don't want a standard for Scottsdale that's a good enough standard. We don't want to just be the best in the valley. We want to be the best in the world. And so we have expectations for how we're going to go from where we are to reach those goals, and that's a part of what's being developed this year. And we also have additional funding to provide support for students who are behind in terms of where their grade level is versus where their performance is.
Okay, thank you. And I failed to mention a little bit earlier, we have a Spanish interpreter here for all of our general meetings. We have Claudia Hernandez over here. So please help us spread the word that that's available at all of our general meetings. And thank you, Claudia, for being here. Okay. In the past, you have sent many surveys, most recently with pooled testing. Why didn't you survey parents about masks? It feels like you didn't want to hear our views, and that was evident by cutting all comments at the board meeting.
So I'll start at the end of that question because I think there was some belief about last night's meeting that are not quite accurate. So whenever the Scottsdale Unified School District Board has a special meeting, we do not have call to the public on the agenda. That's a part of what's in the board policies. Call to the public is only at the regular meeting. The regular meeting is the second meeting of the month, so next Tuesday, that's when we have call to the public scheduled. In order to have the board consider the instructional time model proposal, we needed to have 2 public hearings before the board can adopt it. Our plan before the emergency meeting was requested by a board member was to have a separate hearing on Thursday of this week to review the instructional time model. When you have a public hearing, that opens up the floor for public comment. We decided that having 2 meetings in 1 week didn't make a lot of sense. I approached Dr. Guerin and said, can your team be ready for the initial presentation on Tuesday instead of Thursday? She said she could, so we combined the 2 into 1 meeting. I recognize and understand the frustration because people wanted to talk to the second agenda item, but that if we hadn't combined those 2 meetings, there wouldn't have been public comment on the agenda anyway. In terms of the surveying of our families, we've used a number of tools. One is surveying, the other is we've used thought exchange, and so we have had a number of people who commented in terms of their position on mask or not mask on thought exchange. They've weighed in. I'm going back, looking at I can do a difference analysis on thought exchange, and 169 of the respondents were pro a mask mandate, 136 were against a mask mandate. And it pretty much has fallen out that way in terms of the emails that we've received, the Let's Talk dialogue. So we've had a lot of different ways for families to express their opinion. And like I've said many times since I've been here, the Scottsdale community has strong opinions, and they are not always the same. We don't have 80% feel one way and 20% feel another. It might be 60-40, it might be 55-45, it could be 50-50. But we have differences of opinion. People feel very strongly about it. And we've tried to create multiple avenues in order for your voices to be heard as parents in the school district.
Thank you. Will large 500-plus people outdoor events such as carnivals and festivals be allowed on campuses this fall?
It's a depends answer. So we continue. We have weekly meetings to discuss what do the metrics look like in Maricopa County. More specifically, what do they look like in our 15 zip codes? What do they look like in our schools? Our anticipation, and I think all of you know this, when we ended the school year in May, is that we would move to a much more normal start of the school year. And in fact, we had close to a more normal start of the school year because masks were optional. What wasn't normal is that the Delta variant was really making its presence known. And so we had envisioned that we'd be able to do all of those things that the parent groups have done with the staff to create fundraisers and opportunities for students. And the answer is that we're looking at those on a case-by-case basis. We've really said for the month of August, as we're seeing this increase in Delta cases and our desire to be able to keep our schools open for in-person learning, we don't want to say yes to something that could be an opportunity for more spread, because that's what will jeopardize our ability to keep schools open. And so we'll wait and see. Our preference would be to say yes, but we also need to see what's happening with the spread of COVID.
Okay, great. During last night's board meeting, MCDPH, CDC, et cetera, guidelines were referenced as required at some points and recommended at others. Can you elaborate on whether the district is required to follow all guidelines or recommended to, and how is that decided?
So the language is important, and I appreciate the question. So throughout most of last year, almost everything we had from CDC was a recommendation. Maricopa County Department of Public Health provided recommendations. I sent a letter. I don't know how many of you saw the letter. I sent it to the County Board of Supervisors. I said, because the language is a concern for us, and it wasn't just me, but our colleagues here in the North Valley, we have conversations, and Recommend tells us that it's optional, that we have a choice to make. You know, we could do it or not do it. And in my conversations with Maricopa County Department of Public Health, their understanding of the statute and the regulations around quarantine is that it's first solely within their purview. The school district doesn't have the right to quarantine anyone. That's the public health department's responsibility. Secondly, they're the ones who determine whether or not someone's in compliance with that. But they can order the school district to follow the quarantine requirement. And so I asked the question, and on Tuesday of our board meeting on August 10th, I think that's the date, I spoke with Dr. Sonnenschein, and they had just received confirmation that the language of recommend related to quarantine was being taken out of their communication, and it is students who are close contacts must quarantine. And so there's a shift in the language, and that's where we're continuing to work with them. Over the course of the last year, the health department has outlined what its guidance is. We've worked closely with them on that. There were times where I wanted to do something a little bit different. Think about the spring when we were looking at, do we really have to have masks outside for recess? And the first comment that I got was, I don't think it's a good idea to remove the mask. I pushed a little bit. Dr. Sonnenschein said, you know what, if you measure the data and use this as a pilot project to see whether or not you see any measurable difference in terms of COVID cases, I'm willing to say, okay, give it a shot and see what happens. So they've been really open in terms of taking measured steps to see what works and what doesn't work. And that relationship has worked well for us during the course of the last year, and I hope that it will again this year.
Dr. Menzel, what will happen to students who cannot comply with the mask mandate?
So according to the board directive that was approved last night, failure to comply with the mask requirement, unless you fall into the medical exception or other accommodations category, will be treated as a dress code violation. And so however that's done in the elementary or the secondary schools, it's treated as a dress code violation.
Okay, what is the plan if masks might be needed after 9/28 when Ducey said he will penalize schools?
So I think there are a couple of important points here. You recall we started the year with mask optional. When I got questioned by that, we had a fair number of parents who were saying this is ridiculous, you should be mandating mask now. And the response was consistent. Per our understanding of the law, and this is from counsel from both inside and external legal counsel, that the budget reconciliation bill prohibited districts from mandating masks. And we consistently shared that with our families, including Section 118 that talked about retroactivity. And so there was some acknowledgement by the legislature at the time the budget bill was passed that it actually didn't take effect until September 29th. So they put in a clause, the retroactivity provision, to try to circumvent that. We operated as though that were enforceable. That all changed when the judge made his ruling on Monday related to the Phoenix Union High School case. So we didn't bring or challenge the statute, but as soon as that changed, it clarified that the law doesn't take effect until September 29th, and that just because you have a retroactivity clause in it doesn't allow the legislature to circumvent the constitutional requirements related to what it takes to give something immediate effect. So that changed the approach, and if the law remains in effect and there's no other successful challenge to it, Scottsdale Unified School District will follow the law, and there will not be a mask mandate after September 29th. If the law changes, then we'll have to see what the conditions on the ground are with respect to COVID. I have to be clear and honest. My preference is for this to be a short-term solution. I hope we get on top of the spread of COVID so that we can keep our buildings open and return to a place where masks aren't required. That's the goal. And so I would prefer this to be as short of a mandate as possible, and we'll see what happens, but that's the current standing.
What is your opinion on last night's public comment when the president of our school board cut off the First Amendment rights of parents by imposing content-based restrictions on speech?
So again, to the point I made earlier, the public hearing was related to the instructional time model. There was no public comment related to any agenda item because that's not the practice of Scottsdale Unified School District. And so the board president, and we did review this with legal counsel as well, when the commentary went outside of the instructional time model, was instructed to have the tech team cut off those comments.
Okay. What will masks be required for students who have been vaccinated? What are the district's current cleaning and sanitizing practices, and what's the percentage of vaccinated students?
So the recommendation of CDC, Arizona Department of Health Services, Maricopa County Community, the Department of Public Health, and the American Academy of Pediatricians all recommend that both vaccinated and non-vaccinated individuals wear a mask while inside on school property. So yes, vaccinated and unvaccinated will be expected to wear masks. The cleaning protocols are similar to last year, but they're not as rigid. Again, we continue to look at the emerging research and data. COVID isn't generally transmitted on surfaces. So we do look at the door handles and other things where you might have increased exposure, and so we've got people focusing on that. We do clean the tables in between lunches and those kinds of things. But really, it's airborne, and so it's the increase in the air filtration system. It's distancing as much as possible. When the mask requirement comes in, that helps reduce the potential for spread between individuals, but doesn't eliminate the risk. It just helps mitigate the risk. That's why all of the public health officials talk about a layered mitigation strategy. There's not one solution to help reduce the spread. It's all of these in combination that make the difference.
And then the last question on that was, what percentage of vaccinated students, or what percentage are vaccinated
So
students?
we don't have or collect that information. Some parents have voluntarily provided the vaccination status of their students. We are legally permitted to ask the vaccination status, but a student and family is also legally permitted to say, we're not going to tell you. So we don't have a clear and accurate count of what percentage of our students are vaccinated.
What scientific studies are you basing the mask mandate on, since there are more studies that prove that cloth and surgical masks do nothing to stop and prevent the spread of viruses?
So I appreciate the question because I wrestle with this. You can only imagine the number of emails I get on both sides with the number of studies that are sent to me on both sides. I have highly credentialed medical doctors, ICU, pediatrician doctors from Scottsdale. I have people whose credentials in terms of epidemiology far exceed my own knowledge. I have people who are really great at reading research and can point to arguments pro and con. At the end of the day, you can find a study to support whatever you believe is true. And so from our perspective in looking at this, the public health officials who are responsible for managing a pandemic are the ones who have recommended consistently from the federal level to the state level to the local level that masks are the second most effective strategy in reducing the spread. Not stopping it, it's a virus. It's not that we're going to be able to completely eliminate the risk. It helps slow down the transmission. And so from that perspective, given all of those recommendations, we made the decision given our numbers, and again, those were most troubling to me. Because as you know, last year, I think maybe less than 5 cases that we could identify throughout the course of the year that were epidemiologically linked in school transmission. Last year we were also all masked. It was a different version of the virus, but those are the two things that were different. And so for me, when I'm looking at that increase, if you know anything about exponential growth, it doesn't take long for that to shoot up to the hundreds and create a condition where we wouldn't be able to keep a building open. We're standing at a point now where there is a potential in one of our buildings. We've got 22 to 24 positive cases in one school. The preponderance of those is in one grade level, and it's very close. We haven't closed the grade level and required them to return to virtual, but we're very close because the numbers are super high in that building. Like we did last year, the decisions will be surgical. We don't want to return anyone to virtual if we can avoid it. But seeing that increase, and then with the disparate impact, I mean, when you have to quarantine more than 600 students as a result of close contact in the first 7 days of school, it didn't take long to multiply that out to see just how damaging that would be. That's why this came back in front of the board for consideration, because we want to get on top of it now so that we don't ever have to return to virtual learning, which I think is the one point of agreement across both sides of the mask, no mask debate, is that everybody knows that in-person learning is best for all of our students, and that's what we want to protect.
During the 9 to 12 ELA curriculum adoption, Dr. Guerin defended her recommendation to the board by stating she followed, quote, the spirit of the law. If that is an appropriate process, why doesn't SUSD follow the spirit of the law when it comes to HB 2898? The intent was to allow students to return to school with masks optional. Reversing this decision feels disingenuous.
So I won't speak to the first part because I'm not remembering exactly what the context is, but I can say very clearly, we started the year with masks being optional. We wanted masks to be optional. It wasn't until the data came in, and in the second week in particular, coupled with the judge's ruling on Monday, that changed the conversation about whether or not we should institute a mask mandate for now in order to ensure we can stay open later.
Okay, Dr. Menzel, you, parentheses SUSD, are always seeking override money from the taxpayers. Why are you willing to pass on $39 million for districts not mandating masks that do nothing? Your statements have created an environment of harassment and discrimination in the classroom. Are you ready to be held civilly liable?
So I can speak to the first part. When the governor issued his statement about $1,800 per student available for districts that comply with all laws, first, we're in compliance with the law. The judge ruled the law in terms of the budget reconciliation bill doesn't go into effect until September 29th, which means there's not a prohibition on a mask mandate. And the directive that the governing board passed last night indicates that unless that law is challenged and changed, there will be no mask mandate on September 29th in Scottsdale Unified School District. So we're not out of compliance with the law. That's the first thing. The second thing is we're not eligible for a penny of that $1,800. So when it's not new money that the governor was talking about, this was appropriated months ago. It was planned months ago. And I asked our CFO, I said, well, what percent of the $1,800 per kid are we eligible for? I didn't figure we'd get all $1,800, but I thought we'd get some. We're not eligible for a dime. And so while it played well in terms of people thinking we were going to be penalized, the truth is we're not eligible for a penny of that money.
I understand feeling like you need to do something regarding Delta variant and the spread. However, this variant is different than the initial COVID. The aerosols of Delta are so small and the spikes are very sticky, so masking with a fabric mask and touching all day like kids do is not going to stop the spread in schools. Maybe using medical technique and medical grade N95 and greater would be helpful, but that is not the case here. So why mandate masks when the evidence is not there to support these generic and fabric masks that our students will be wearing?
So when I hear from a pediatric ICU doctor talking about what they're seeing in terms of the increased number of cases, and right now we're getting close to 20% of all Delta cases in Arizona are in students or children under the age of 19. And again, most of our students don't get seriously ill, and we are grateful for that. But there are many who are hospitalized now, and that was not the case with the prior variant. So there's still a lot that we don't know. When medical professionals from Mayo, Banner Health, Honor Health, all continue to reach out to me and say, the one thing you can do to help us is to institute a mask mandate, and when all of the medical professionals themselves are masking their kids when it's optional, that tells me that from a medical perspective, they believe that there's some value in having the mask be there. It doesn't eliminate the risk. It reduces the risk. And so at this juncture, with something that's at least twice as contagious as the variant before, we want to slow the spread, and that's the goal in terms of using the mask.
Okay, you got 10 minutes left, so you're doing good. How has an opt-out been created for the mask mandate? If so, where can it be found?
So if you watched the meeting last night, you know that opt-out was raised. The language of opt-out was not included, but what it does say is medical exceptions and, other accommodations. So a student or staff member may request a medical or other reasonable accommodation from the requirements of this directive. Superintendent shall establish a process for applying for, evaluating, and implementing medical or other reasonable accommodations. So that's what we're doing. We've worked on that today. The form itself is very close to being completed. We're going to try to make that electronic. We'll have it in paper for those who need it, but try to put it online so that we can get that launched hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. We recognize that the mask requirement goes into effect on Friday, that those requests may not all get processed by then. Consider Friday a soft launch. We know that if we can't process the request, we're going to be understanding. The goal ultimately, and this is where we're asking all of our parents and families to work with us, is to do what we can to keep our schools open. The mandate is only while students are inside. So when they're coming into the school, they're not required to wear the mask. When they're moving in between classes, if they're outside of a building, they don't have to wear a mask. If they're out for recess, they don't have to wear a mask. There are even some provisions in the directive that make it very clear if you're taking a snack break or drinking water that you're not expected to wear a mask. So it's pragmatic in its approach, but it's also very clear that when you set 30 kids or 35 kids in a high school classroom for 55 minutes, if you have somebody who is symptomatic, and we do have symptomatic kids that do come to school, and if they're in that room unmasked with other unmasked and unvaccinated individuals, the likelihood of spread is increased significantly. That's what we're trying to reduce.
Okay, this one's to Mr. Greenberg, who's not here, so we skipped that one. And this one's been answered, but I'll read it. Dr. Menzel, will SUSD comply with the state law in September when it goes into full effect? Will the board need to vote on it? So he already addressed that one. So are there plans for teachers to get tested weekly? And if a student is quarantined, does the teacher have to take a COVID test?
So we have, and this is emerging, we do have some rapid tests that have been provided for us by Arizona Department of Health Services. And I think we had something like 24 boxes that were available for every building. There's a backlog of kits that are ordered. We're hoping to get more of those. In this building, we've implemented a voluntary surveillance system so that at least once a week everybody can get tested. I do it on Monday with Cabinet because I don't want to be sitting around with the administrative leadership team and find that somebody is COVID positive and didn't know. That same opportunity is available for others within the district, so it's not mandated. It is voluntary, and we do support that. Because we think early detection is key to stopping the spread, because if someone knows that they're positive, then they can isolate appropriately and stop the spread from happening.
Okay, thank you. Why does SUSD pay for SUSD logos on 9 non-N95 masks? The CDC recommends N95 masks, and cloth masks cause bacteria, which can scar the face.
So like many others when the pandemic started, people saw it as a marketing opportunity for the cloth face mask. Actually, if you read the CDC guidelines on face coverings, it does talk about a double-lined cloth mask. It may indicate that there's higher level of protection with KN95, but it actually does recommend a double-lined cloth mask. And so the district has these. Many other people choose what they want. There have been people who said we should just be saying wear the surgical mask or the KN95. Availability of those is somewhat difficult to come by. We continue to order more so that there's no hardship for any of our families. Everyone who needs a mask will be provided a mask. Many other people want to accessorize.
Does SUSD plan to require quarantine and masks for flu, which hospitalizes 21,000 children in the 2018-19 school year?
So, to my knowledge, there's no consideration of mandating masks for flu. The other mitigation strategy that's really essential here is that when people are sick, they stay home. And so what we found, and this is true not just during the pandemic, but before, and I've been a superintendent, this is my 20th year, there are parents who, because they need to work, pop 2 Advil and send their kid who is running a fever into school. Somewhere midday, that fever spikes again, and the nurse has to call home and say, hey, your kid's got a fever. Some cases, the child is honest and says, a parent might not want the student to say this, but hey, I just had 2 Advil this morning. So the thing is, if people stay home when they're sick, we'll reduce the spread of the flu as well as other infectious diseases. The novel nature of the Delta variant and COVID itself has really been disruptive for the medical profession. Hospital beds are filling up again. They're not completely full, but it's a concern. And ultimately what we want to do is be able to get to the point. So there is some statistical modeling out of ASU that indicates that the trajectory for Delta peaks in the middle of September. So in my mind, if we can get there, if that's true, now it's only statistical modeling, so our behavior does impact that. If we can get there, if you look at what happened in the UK with the Delta variant, or even in India where there were a lot of fatalities because they had fewer vaccinated individuals, the drop after the peak of the surge was pretty substantial. So those all give me hope that this is a temporary measure in order to stem the tide. That's the goal. But I never know what's around the corner because none of us can really predict that, because this has been one of those situations where all of the changes have sometimes really surprised us.
Okay, this has a couple questions. One you already answered, which is what happens if children refuse to wear masks, which you said is a dress code violation. How can we enforce masks and increase transparency, and what steps are being taken to make things universal across all schools?
So the universal across all schools is a double-edged sword. So our schools aren't all different, or aren't all the same. And so while we want common expectations for academic achievement, rigor in the curriculum, how we get there can look different. The expectations of the community can be different. And so we're trying to find what's that balance between Scottsdale Unified and Scottsdale Uniform. We have to be uniform on the things that matter. And so the board policy and the board directive is pretty clear. But as I think you've known over the past year and a half, we also have had principals that had some ideas that they wanted to try out. And just like when I call Dr. Sunshine and say, hey, what do you think if we did this? We have principals that do the same thing. They say, we have an idea. What if we try this? And we are more than willing to pilot things, measure impact, and if it works, then we can expand and go to scale. The thing that I'm reluctant to do, particularly when it comes to health, safety, and well-being of our students, is an all-or-nothing approach that's untested. If it fails, it has significant consequences. And so this pilot, measure, and then scale is an approach that I think makes more sense in this kind of environment.
Okay, we'll get two more in. This one is on testing. Embry Oak Street Learning Location has previously taken 24 to 36 hours to get test results back. Know from personal experience. Now they have been quoting more than 72 hours. This takes a toll on students and the possibility to return them to their classroom if asymptomatic and negative. Rapid test appointments are unavailable or cost $140. Some nurses are accepting home tests, some not. How can we get healthy kids back to school learning quickly?
So if it's a Binax Now test, those are ones that we can take. So if a nurse is not accepting that, we just need to know. We have some new nurses, and not everyone knows the protocol and expectation. What I hear, even talking to my superintendent colleagues, is that this is true across the valley. There are a lot of people getting tested. There are a lot of people symptomatic, and you see it in the data. So it becomes more difficult. I heard that at Embry's, their machine actually broke down at the end of one day because they had so much that they were processing. And so we want to work with people for tests that are accepted by the health department. I do know the Binax Now test is acceptable, and it's relatively easy to use. Now that I've done it for the last couple of Mondays myself, it's not particularly difficult. The only thing is I sort of had hoped that it would be positive so I wouldn't go to the board meeting, but that didn't happen. So,
Okay, is the district providing masks for students?
yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's questions. We obviously had a bunch left over. He joins us once a month just for a 15-minute question and answer. This today was an extended period, so thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I know it's a long day.
Thank you for the invitation. And I just want to say thank you to all of our parents. I know that there are differences of opinion, but at the end of the day, what makes a school district strong is parents who are advocating for their kids and invested in the quality of the public education system. That is what makes Scottsdale Unified School District a very special place to be. And my goal is that as we get through COVID and beyond COVID, that we come together as a community. So I hope that we can find a way to have civil discourse around differences of opinion with a common objective of doing what's best to meet the needs of our 22,000 school students here in the district. So thank you all for what you do every day in support of your students.
Thank you. Okay. So, Scary, we have to move on with the rest of our meeting. All right, so the rest of the evening, we're going to talk about Scottsdale Parent Council. This is actually a Scottsdale Parent Council meeting, not a meeting for the school district. So, Scottsdale Parent Council, A little bit about our history. The organization was founded in 1977. We worked alongside the district, but we're autonomous from the district. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, so we are nonpartisan. And our mission is to promote communication and collaborative relationships between Scottsdale United School District families, district leadership and staff, and to support and advocate for the highest quality of education for all of the students attending SUSD. And I know we have over 22,000 students in our district. So the structure of the organization, we have an executive board, and then we have SBC school representatives, and we have our VP of Reps speaking a little bit about that position in a little bit. We host this monthly meeting. We alternate nighttime, and then next month will be at 9 in the morning, and it flip-flops month to month. At each meeting, we have Dr. Menzel for 15 minutes, and then we have some updates from our school representatives so that we can all hear what's going on in the other school communities. And then we have some sort of featured speaker. Most of them will be someone from the school district, district staff, a leader of a program within the district, and then we'll have some speakers that are just on general family topics. So those general meetings are meant to be applicable to students throughout the district, and we're still putting our schedule together for that. So if there's someone you want to hear from within the district or a speaker you know of that you think would be great for all families to hear, share on one of those cards, please, and just drop it off at the front there. And then we have, in addition to our monthly general meetings, we have several special events throughout the year. We have a couple committees that you'll hear about in a little bit. So they have some special events, whether it's speakers or gatherings of other kinds. And then we also have opportunities for the PTOs throughout the district to come together for roundtables to collaborate. So we'll host several things like that throughout the year. And at our general meetings, we'll have Spanish interpretation available at all of those. And then at some of the special events, we're just going to play those by ear and figure that out as we go along. So one thing to mention, we are in need of a bilingual Spanish speaker for our executive board. So if you happen to be bilingual and are interested, please come talk to me. Or if you know of someone to recommend, then please let me know or send an email. My email is president@scottsdaleparentcouncil.org. You could reach out to anyone on the board. Our website has the email addresses of all of our board members. So next up, we have our treasurer, Amanda Ray, to talk about the budget that we voted in for this fiscal year.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is my first in-person SPC meeting. So is this a normal amount of people? That's good. Awesome. I only just learned of SPC last year, so I am excited to be here and be involved. And I've been encouraging people to attend and show up because I think it's important for us to be involved in the organizations that help communicate with the district. So just really quickly, I will, it's very hard to see. Is it clear on the, I can't see it on that screen. This is the approved budget for the school year 2021, which runs from July 1st to June 30th of 2022. Can you guys see this? It's made available online, though, if people wanted to go through. Yeah, it'll be on the website if people want to go through and look. I think the biggest change this year is the addition of translation, as Emmy mentioned. So there is a budgeted expense there at the bottom. That's the biggest change from last year. Most of the membership comes from the individual school sites. So the PTOs contribute. We are hoping to get more individual memberships this year. So this is a QR code you can use there. Emmy, can people direct their donations? So if they want to donate to it, I know last year you had a backpack drive and there may be other things that we do throughout the year. Can they direct it to a specific purpose? Right, going forward, could they? Okay. Okay, great. So if anybody has any questions about how to make donations, please send me an email. Does anybody have any questions about the budget? I kind of glossed over it because it's hard to see, but yes, Jane. Oh, so the suggested donation, yeah, thank you. The suggested donation amount for each campus was $80 last year. It's gone up to $100 this year. Any other questions I can answer? Per school, yep. So the reps can really help with, we've got so much going on and people's inboxes are full, and I think that we'll be sending those announcements out, or those invoices or requests for donations soon. So if the reps can help encourage those and just remind people is helpful too. No, actually, we'll have an email, and most of I think that most of the schools write a check, right? Okay, I think when I've looked at the prior years, it's usually a check from the PTO because it's probably easiest for. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it comes here to the district 8500 East Jackrabbit. Yeah, and if you can put attention SPC, then I'll make arrangements with the front desk to pick those up. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah. Sure. No, my understanding is that this is gifted to us, right, from the district? Yeah. No. Correct. Yep. Associated but not sponsored, really. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Oh. That's a good question. I'm going to let Emmy answer that. Yeah, and I'll just close it out, and then I'll give it back to you. But if anybody has any questions, my email address is treasurer@Scottsdale Parent Council. So if you didn't want to ask anything publicly or just want to send that or think of something later, reach out to me then. And if you have donations, it would be helpful. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. And since we are a 501c3, all of your donations are tax deductible. And our website has a donate button, and this budget is posted on our website as well. So our relationship with the district, they host us here for our meetings. Dr. Menzel attends. We also, like I said, we'll have a lot of our main speakers will be people from the district. So they just collaborate and offer an opportunity for parents to interact with district staff and employees and learn about the programs. Okay, so next up we have our VP of Representatives, Kathy Samuels. So she will talk about our SP of Representatives position, and that's a way for parents to get involved as well.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight in this rain and this whatever else we had out in the atmosphere. SPC school representatives, we're the liaisons between the school parent community and the district parent community. So in other words, you here in your own school will collaborate with people from other schools, and that makes a fantastic parent, kid, community, and all of us connected, and it's terrific. So those of you who are interested in it, what you do as an SPC rep, promote, so advertise meetings and events by your school community. So if you're here, then what you'll get mailed to you if you're that rep is the graphics that we have from the community meetings. And so you'll just bring that back to your school, talk to your representatives, make sure that you share the meeting information. So what you do here at SPC, you bring back to your school community. And then if there are other issues and concerns, you can bring those to your school community as well. The second thing you do is you inform. So you share information presented here with your school community. And so what you see here, you'll meet with your principal, you'll meet with whatever your parent community organization is at your school. It could be a PTA, PTO, however that works. And then you just report back what you hear here. Collaborate. This is an outstanding way to collaborate with other schools and parents to get ideas for school programs, fundraisers, volunteer issues and more. So every school has a different way that they do fundraising. Everybody has a different way that they get school volunteers. And your community service that you do here collaborates with other schools. And that's a fantastic way to get new ideas, because you may have an issue with getting volunteers, whereas another school may be fantastic at it. And so that's your job, is to just sort of glean new ideas and bring those back to your school. It's a great way to do it. And then number 4 is vote. Vote on behalf of your school community for the SPC Executive Board. Your executive board will be created by the SPC reps. And so that will be voted on for next year. Frequently asked questions. These are the best ones. How many reps does each school have? 2 parents or guardians from each school, which is fantastic. So it's nice to have 2 because, and the term is for 1 year. And then it's great because do I have to be at every meeting? If you cannot be at every meeting, sometimes your schedule is different than the other person's. So one can come in the morning and one can come in the evening. So we'll alternate those. And then who appoints the SPC reps? That's the principal.
All right, thank you, Kathy. So as she said, the principal appoints the reps. We will be reaching out to the principals tomorrow to appoint their reps. So send in your name ASAP. They each will have a bit of a different process to appoint reps, but they've all been alerted as of the end of last year as to that we were going to be asking for them right now. So the third way that parents can get involved is that we have 3 SVC committees. These were all established about 1.5 years ago. All of our committees are ad hoc, meaning a group comes to us with an issue they want to form a committee around. The executive board votes whether to create the committee and appoint co-chairs, and then they exist sort of as long as we feel that they're required and necessary. So first one tonight is the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, and the 2 co-chairs couldn't be here tonight, but that's Jill Lassen and Brad Duell. So they are beginning to meet soon. This QR code is the form to express interest in being a part of it. So go ahead and grab that. And they had a change of co-chairs, so they're kind of getting started. They just got appointed in July, so they're starting off the school year. And then we have special education, and for that we have Miss Larissa Beckstead to come talk for us. There you are, hiding in the corner.
Hi, good evening. My name is Larissa Beckstead. I'm a mother of 2 Scottsdale Unified School District boys. One that is 16, he's a teenager. That is his annoying habit, whatever you want to call it. He's a teenage boy. And then Bailey is my 18-year-old who has autism. He's about middle of the spectrum. So we have been receiving self-contained services. So my special ed experience is probably the middle of the road. I'm pretty well versed in IEPs because we've been doing this forever. But I have made connections with a great organization called Raising Special Kids, and they're going to be doing some trainings for our parents. I'm doing them online because unless you are familiar with my community, you really you don't understand how difficult it is for us to come in person to do this, and how we have to like shift and move the moon in the sky and all that to be able to do something like that. So it's a lot easier for my people to do online. So we will be doing a Spanish IEP training in October, because that's my goal this year, is to make sure I get the Spanish-speaking population. I feel like that's kind of our denied group in our special ed population. So if anybody knows of any Spanish-speaking families, please reach out and help connect them with me, and I will connect them with other Spanish-speaking special need families. A lot of IP and 504 are kind of more training for the newer families. So if you have any families that are new to the SPED world, they're just entering, if you know friends, family, please reach out to me. Yes, it's been years, because I'm 18 years into this, but I remember, in fact, I'm at a point where I'm in a transition, so I kind of remember what it was like back when Bailey was 3 and 4, because I'm going through it again as he's 18. And then high school transition is a whole different world. That rocked my world 4 years ago. And job transition, and then summer options, because there are summer camps for our kids, our special needs kids, and so I'd love to get the word out to families. So please let me know. Reach out to me. It's Larissa Beckstead, L. Beckstead at Scottsdale Parent Council. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Larissa. So all of the information on all of our committees is on our website, all those email addresses. This presentation will be on the website, so that's the place to find everything. And then our last committee is the Social Responsibility Committee, which is Lisa Kanarish and Karen Gifford, and Lisa's here tonight to talk.
Hi, my name is Lisa Kanarish. I am one of the SVC reps from Sequoia Elementary, and where I have a 5th grader. I'll give a shout out to my principal, Veronica Leifer, over there. I always have to give a shout out when we're in the same room. She's always very involved, comes to every meeting, so we really appreciate that. Thank you. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Social Responsibility Committee, along with Karen Gifford. Our committee was created early last summer to investigate best practices among SUSD schools to help reduce and prevent bullying and harassment. Our focus is on parent education about preventative measures that can be taken, preventative actions, and how to address bullying in the home and with your school. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Shannon Cron. She is the SUSD Director of Support Services. She is a member of our committee, and she's an invaluable resource. And I just wanted to say that we're very grateful that she takes the time out of her busy days to attend our committee meetings. So if you're listening, Shannon, thank you. So together, our committee, so far, we have reviewed AZ's anti-bullying laws, which can be found in the Arizona Revised Statutes at 15341. Basically, the statute just directs school governing boards to create and enforce anti-bullying laws and create a policy. And then it enumerates what is actually required in each of the school board's policies. So we reviewed SUSD's anti-bullying policy, which is JIC 3200. And I don't know if you can, I didn't realize it's a lot of words over there, but the link to JIC 3200, if anybody wants to look at SUSD's anti-bullying policy, is up there. We compared the requirements of SUSD's policy, and they were consistent with Arizona Revised Statute. We were also able to talk to some SUSD parents about their experiences with their own children's situations with bullying here in SUSD. And then we created a bullying awareness flyer that will be posted in every school's front office. Those should be arriving to schools tomorrow. The flyer includes information about SUSD's policy, staff requirements in a bullying situation, victims' rights and support services, and most importantly, how to file a complaint. And then in May, we met with a representative from GLSEN. We went through their model local education agency bullying and harassment prevention policy. And we got a lot of really good insight into some best practices around bullying prevention and different ways that bullying situations can be addressed. And so we're meeting right now to go through some of the language from their policy that could possibly be incorporated into SUSD's policy. And basically, we just look forward to building on the progress that we made last year. And if anybody is interested in joining the committee, you can contact, I think, is our contact information. Yeah, you can contact Karen or myself, and we'd be more than happy to discuss more with you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. And here is our general meeting schedule. So there's actually some handouts at the door there that you can grab one on your way out. Everyone is welcome at all of those. We will stream all of them on our YouTube channel as well, and then they're always available as a recording there also. And that is it. So thank you for attending. If you have any suggestions for speakers at any of the meetings, we'd love to hear them, or any other questions and comments, write them on a card, or feel free to send me an email or contact anyone on our board. So thank you.